It starts with a ship, not a warship, not a carrier, but a massive blue and red container vessel slicing across the Indian Ocean, stacked so high with steel boxes it looks like a floating city. Inside those boxes are the invisible threads that pull the modern world together: phones, solar panels, electric cars, refrigerators, routers, medicines, all stamped with three quiet words: Made in China. Most people see a label, but behind that label is something far bigger: a new global system of trade, money, and power. And almost no one noticed when it happened. This is the story of how China didn't just join the world economy, it built a parallel one, an entire second ecosystem of factories, banks, shipping routes, currencies, and influence running alongside the Western-led system that shaped the last century. A story not told through charts, but through people, ambition, and the sheer human force of a nation determined to never be vulnerable again. To understand China's new global economy, you have to start with something rarely discussed in numbers or trade reports: a memory. For over 100 years, from the Opium Wars to the World Wars, China was carved up, controlled, and humiliated by foreign powers. Ports were seized, factories were burned, millions died. The country learned a brutal lesson: when you depend on others, you are weak. When others depend on you, you are strong. So when China opened up in the late 20th century, its goal wasn't just development, it was protection. A quiet vow: never again. Factories appeared like mushrooms after rain. But these weren't just factories, they were an entire continent of production. Shenzhen turned from a fishing village into a technological supernova. Guangzhou became a living, breathing engine of manufacturing. Shanghai rose like a blade of glass and steel. Millions of workers left their villages with nothing but a backpack and hope. They built phones by day, slept in dorms at night, and sent money home at the end of each month. Their labor didn't just produce goods, it produced leverage. Because when China became the world's workshop, it gained something priceless: influence over the global supply chain. And supply chains aren't just business, they're geopolitics, made of screws, circuits, and shipping schedules. But factories were only the first layer. The West still controlled the world's financial plumbing: the IMF, the World Bank, SWIFT, the US dollar. China's leaders studied this system carefully and built their own, not as a replacement, but as a backup, a parallel universe. Banks like China Development Bank and Exim Bank began lending billions across Asia, Africa, and Latin America, often more than the World Bank itself. The Belt and Road Initiative created a financial highway stretching across continents: ports, railways, power plants, all financed by Beijing. And when China built CIPS, its own version of the SWIFT payment system, it signaled something new: a world where money didn't have to pass through Washington or Brussels, a world where a country could trade with China and never touch the dollar. Quietly, slowly, patiently, China constructed a second financial architecture. But the most strategic parts of this new ecosystem were not visible to the consumer. Not the phones or toys or laptops. It was the things behind the things: rare earth metals, lithium processing, battery manufacturing, solar panel production, high-speed rail, telecommunications hardware. Industries so complex, so capital-heavy, so globally connected that once China dominated them, it became almost impossible to replace. A solar panel isn't just a solar panel, it's a bargaining chip. A lithium battery isn't just a battery, it's leverage over the future of transportation. A port isn't just a port, it's a foothold in global trade routes. Piece by piece, China built a network of influence not through conquest, but through competence, scale, and speed the world couldn't match. But this isn't just a story about strategy, it's a story about people. About the factory worker who assembles smartphones she will never own, believing her son might one day. About the African trader in Guangzhou shipping goods to Lagos, Nairobi, and Accra building his own business on the backbone of Chinese manufacturing. About Latin American farmers exporting soybeans, copper, and beef, finding prosperity in a new direction, east, not west. China's parallel economy is made of millions of stories like these, stories of survival, ambition, and interconnected destinies. A global economy built not by ideology, but by human will. But today, the two economic systems, Western and Chinese, are no longer running in parallel. They are colliding. The US restricts chips. China limits rare earth exports. Companies try to de-risk. Nations divide into technological blocks. Currencies compete. Supply chains fracture. Two worlds, two financial systems, two visions of how the global economy should function begin to pull away from each other, not with missiles, but with money, with data, with infrastructure, with influence. The new Cold War isn't cold at all. It's happening in plain sight, in apps, ports, satellites, and investments. So what does it mean? How do we understand a world where a single nation built a parallel global economy, and the rest of the world now runs on two tracks? Maybe the bigger story isn't about China, or the West, or who wins. Maybe it's about something deeper. How fragile our modern world really is. How interconnected. How dependent we've become on systems we barely understand. And how the economic choices of one generation shape the fate of the next. The steel boxes on that massive ship, they're not just containers. They're symbols of ambition, of vulnerability, of a world built on invisible threads, threads that can tie nations together or pull them apart. The parallel global economy exists now. The question is no longer how China built it. The question is, what happens next when two economic worlds try to fit on the same planet?